Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hormone Helper podcast. I'm Coach Andrew, your hormone helper from Fit for All Fitness. I personally coach over 1,600 men and women to help better understand their hormones so they can lose weight and get their metabolism back on track. With this podcast, you're going to hear from me and my special guests about everything from metabolism to thyroid to weight loss. And we even talk a little bit of sexy time as we chat to spread more knowledge thick like butter on your hormones. If you're ready to learn, I'm ready to share, so let's do this. Thanks for tuning in again, where today we are going to talk about thunder thighs, beer belly, donut rolls, stress tummy, your spare tire, cellulite, or any other way that you can think of to call what the problem is, and that problem is your body fat. So I've been meaning to do an episode on this for a while now, as I feel almost every client I start working with has a reduction of body fat as a part of their goals. They state they want to have stable energy levels. They want less gut distress. They want a better metabolism. Oh yeah. And of course, they want their weight to be down too. This topic is what people talk about the most, whether it's with friends in a close circle for coffee, family over a dinner conversation, or even your partner when you're trying on different outfits in the bedroom to wear. There are many people, my clients included, who have a poor relationship with how their body looks and have those specific areas that they either want to spot, target, or sculpt away to make themselves feel more comfortable with how they look. People do the usual stuff to try and keep their fat percentage down. They reduce their calories in their diet. They may cut out carbs for a couple of months. They up the amount of cardio they do daily to burn more calories. And of course, they try to get more sleep and better rest for themselves. Don't get me wrong, all the things I listed, they're not bad. For example, if someone spends their days eating more than 5,000 calories a day, sure, lowering their calorie intake is going to help their body fat. Or if someone hasn't done activity in 4 to 5 months, of course, doing a 30-minute run or walk is going to help daily. But here's what these people don't anticipate. All of that stuff eventually stops working, and then they stop seeing results. The scale won't go down anymore, even when they try to cut the calorie shortage even more or start doing even more activity. I want to go through an example, and it's my client, Ben. So we've been working with each other for a little under a year now, about 10 months. And at this point in filming this podcast, Ben has lost a little over 100 pounds. So it's about 104 pounds. He has lost this weight consistently. So roughly 2.3 pounds per week. And during our working together, he has never plateaued in his fat loss, ever. Now, of course, Ben has done the usual thing that everybody else does, except he hasn't plateaued or stopped seeing weight results like everybody else does. So what's the difference? Well, for most people I come across, they stop seeing results at that 10-pound mark. Once they hit 10 pounds down, one of three things happens. One, they can't seem to lose anymore, and they have to keep doing what they're doing to keep that weight off. Two, they lose that weight, and then it comes rushing back with more weight on the top. And three, they cave as diets are kind of too extreme, or maybe their activity level's too high, so they can't keep up their routine, and the weight slowly returns them to how they were before. All of these suck. It's a shitty way to go. There's nothing worse than cutting out all of the foods you love, spending 3 hours of your daytime on the treadmill, struggling through crazy cravings for sugar and salt, and then you wake up one day and you find you're back to where you started, which is square one. I'm going to tell you this because Ben literally just did that before working with me. It's crazy because we were speaking on and off for, I'd say, probably 6 months. And during that time, he tried different diets and he struggled to do it on its own before he reached back out. And I ended up actually just calling him on his challenges. I'll tell you all something straight up before we get into the fat loss situation today. I am always going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's especially important as a coach, because I feel like a lot of coaches only tell you what you want to hear, and then you're disappointed with what you actually receive. So I'm the guy who's like, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear because I ultimately care about you. And in Ben's case, I really did just that. I think I said something like, dude, I don't want to have another conversation with you in 6 months and find that you're like still in the same place. He is, however, one of the very few people who then took up the opportunity to work one-on-one with me and start on this true and sustainable journey of fat loss. I'm going to walk you through the same stuff I literally told him about body fat, because if you don't understand why your body keeps it on you, you're never going to be able to have your body let it go or prevent it from gaining that weight back. Here it is. It's the secret sauce, my secret sauce. All that body fat is stored energy. It's a reserve tank of your fuel that their body's going to keep to make sure that you have the energy you need to deal with your energy output, as well as your emergency daily uses around stress. So there's actually two different types of body fat. One is called visceral fat and the other is called subcutaneous. While these fat stores operate the same way, they get stored in two totally different places in the body. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about subcutaneous first, because this type of fat is kind of located between the skin and your outer abdominal wall. So it's the really surface level stuff. Really, this type of fat that's stored by your body, it's usually caused by dietary or lifestyle reasons. For example, poor eating habits, not enough calorie intake, too much calorie intake, excess sugar consumption, and lack of activity. By maintaining a healthy diet and keeping up with regular exercise, the idea is you can burn calories and shed subcutaneous fat that your body is storing, because that is all surface level. This type of fat is really what you call your body's reserve tank. So the body only stores this type of fat when it feels you either A, don't have enough energy to support yourself during the day, meaning you keep dipping into that reserve tank of energy all the time, or B, you continue to store too much energy to the point where it actually starts making your reserve tank larger. You see, losing fat requires certain conditions to be met for the body to say to itself, I don't need that reserve fuel anymore. If we don't meet the conditions of the reserve fuel storage, our body's going to keep storing body fat until it feels we have enough storage to maintain whatever we're usually doing. This is where weight yo-yos back to either that certain number you're stuck at and why people can't break past a certain number. Their body isn't meeting these conditions, the conditions for fat loss, and that means that it's not going to let that energy go. Even though each person is different, I can safely say that these conditions are identical, virtually the same for everyone. And the ones that I'm going to list are exactly what I look at with people who join our hormone reboot program. It's every single condition. So the conditions for fat loss go like this. 1, am I intaking the daily amount of energy and nutrients that my body needs for my current weight and my goal weight? So this needs to take into account things like physical job, activity level, body type, nutrient amounts, along with making sure that it's met every day consistently. Then the second condition is, do I have the nutrients I need to make the hormones while still running my system? That means if any of this energy is converting or digesting, that you still have to be able to operate without your excess levels of fatigue or your metabolism slowing down for any reason. The third is pretty easy, and that is, am I in danger right now? This condition refers to how much weight someone loses in a certain period of time. So as much as I'd like to say as a coach, like, hey, a person can lose like 50 pounds. No, a person can't lose like 35 pounds in a week or 50 pounds. It's not possible. Their body would think that it is in starvation mode and maybe it's in danger, and then it's going to stop that from happening, which is why my clients who need fat loss to happen, I have them lose about 2.2 to 2.8 pounds per week. As long as you meet all of these conditions, these 3 conditions I talked about, the subcutaneous fat, it's really not that hard to get rid of or to keep off. So an example for Ben, his storage of fat was mostly this type. And the way that I guided him was basically to have him meet all of these conditions consistently, day by day, making sure all of these 3 things were met. So his body didn't go back into what I call storage mode. That's where your weight just keeps piling on. Now, what about that second type of body fat that I mentioned? The one called visceral body fat. This is the real tricky one. So this one lies in between the space between all of your abdominal and your reproductive organs. It hides in like a little, what do we want to call it? An apron-like wall of tissue. And that's called the omentum. Name doesn't matter. But essentially, this apron-like wall of tissue, this type of fat cell grows substantially large. So to the point where it basically can't hold its own space as a cell. So it starts to crowd other places. It starts to crowd your organs and expand around every organ that you have. Now, although this type of fat is normally centralized around your midsection, if the fat deposit becomes large enough, it starts to circle things like your heart, your intestines, your liver, like literally encircle everything. This is the type of fat that's dangerous. It's not just dangerous for weight, it's dangerous for your body as well, because it can also build up in your arteries. This is why doctors refer to this as what we call active fat, because it can actively increase the risk of serious health problems. So according to research, if you were to calculate your total body fat, you've got about roughly 10% of your total fat that's visceral in nature. So if someone's 300 pounds, you're having 30, 40 pounds of fat, or has 300 pounds of fat on them. 30 to 40 pounds of fat, that's going to be your visceral. And that is very, very dangerous. So visceral fat contributes to a lot of things. So insulin resistance, and multiple studies suggest that it's because visceral fat creates retinol binding protein, which is basically a protein that increases insulin resistance. Visceral fat can also raise blood pressure quickly, and most importantly, it increases your risk of developing life-threatening conditions. So medical conditions like heart attack, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, breast cancer, colon cancer, Alzheimer's. A lot of stuff can happen as this starts to build up and crowd your organs and affect the way your body works. So it's safe to say that this fat ain't no joke. Now, this fat, want to guess where it comes from? It's tied directly to your stress hormone cortisol. There are other things that make it, but the main one is your hormone cortisol. So your stress in your life, whether physical from a really reconstricted or a constricted diet and excessively high levels of activity, maybe it's mental from long work hours with little rest or always being on the go, or even emotional with ongoing stressors or family issues that never go away. These things are all responsible for the increase in your visceral fat. Now, this fat, it's very hard to get rid of, and that's because of all three of those conditions that I mentioned earlier. They can even begin to look out for those if you're under chronic stress and under chronic danger. So what ends up happening is your body can't focus on these three signals if it's focused on trying to deal with the stress in that moment. So you are in danger. That is the way your body sees it when you have a lot of this fat. The way your body sees it is you need that energy stored around you so you can be safe and be protected from that danger just to live another day. Now, more than 1 in 3 people experience this type of fat in more than a 10% amount, and it doesn't go away unless you balance your hormones and reduce that level of stress. So when I'm taking a look for clients, I'm looking at what type of body type do you have and what type of fat do you store? Is it visceral? Is it subcutaneous? You're going to have a little bit of both, but you're going to have a main of one. And once I take a look at that, I say, okay, how can we get this person to meet those 3 conditions? Make sure that you're not in a stressor mode, make sure that you're intaking enough for all of your activity level and your goal, and make sure that you have enough to have your hormones. From there, the weight comes off. The weight, and by weight I mean fat, comes off, and it comes off consistently, and it doesn't yo-yo back. The body is safe keeping you at that number because it knows that you are meeting the daily intake every single day. And now that you know the difference between the two, here's how you can determine which one you have. I want you to feel yourself. Okay, not touch yourself. Please don't do that. Okay, that's the type of feeling that we do not want listening to this podcast, please. I don't want messages saying, oh, I touched myself and it was great. No, feel yourself, please. And this is the way that you're going to do it. You're going to pull the skin on the back of your palm, and you're going to roll it gently between your fingers. The way that you're going to feel is it's going to be really supple. It's going to return to the surface quickly. And it's going to help basically stay in one place. So subcutaneous fat basically floats along the surface, and it's like a gelatin, and it can move around. So it's very light. It's very fluffy. You're going to find it underneath your skin. So around the skin of your stomach where you can move, around the skin of your hands, back of the forearms. There's less of that there, but it's really easy to determine. Visceral fat, however, is hard. It's grainy, feels like cottage cheese in texture under the skin. And I'm sure if I think of an example, like you've seen someone at the beach with like a really big belly that's like rock, like a stone. Like you can tell it's hard. It doesn't move. They get up, they bend over, still like a boulder. That is visceral in nature. An extreme example, I know, but everyone can picture it when I mention it that way. That is how you can tell the difference. So I want you to be able to tell the difference so then you know what type of fat you have. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg with this, and there's so much more to unpack. And before we go to today's episode, before we go from today's episode, I should say, I want to let you all know that I'm doing a live training literally on this stuff and on how you can lose your first 10 pounds naturally by balancing your hormones. So it's going to be in 2 weeks' time from when I, of course, film this podcast, and I'm going to drop the registry for the live training into the show notes. So there we're going to be discussing how to drop that weight, how to go about to keep it off, just like I've done with Ben and 240 other people this year. So I work with a bucket ton of people. If you want to get more knowledge on this and get started on dropping your weight, as well as balancing your hormones in the process, then you are going to want to attend. You're going to want to be there because there's a lot to unpack with this. So the first 33, holy cow. The first 30 free spots, there we go. Say that quickly fast 5 times. The first 30 free spots are almost full. And after that, I'm going to be opening up additional seats for $15 each. So I want the first 30 people in there because I want to be able to answer everyone's individual questions. But as I have to extend the seminar longer than an hour, then obviously I've got to make sure that makes sense for me as well too. So make sure you grab your free spot. So if the link is still up, then there is still space available. So just click the Eventbrite link in the show notes and you're going to be able to hop in and register. It'll send you a link to join. And then that's going to be on September 28th, 2022. You'll be able to hop in and then we'll do the live training on that. Or you can send me an email at andrew@fit4allstudio.com. So andrew@fit4allstudio.com. If you're listening to this episode past the September 28th time, and we're going to see if I can't maybe find a way to get you that training as a recording. So hopefully you guys got a lot of benefit from this, and I will see you on the next episode. Well, it seems I'm all out of info juice for today. That's all for this episode, and thank you so much for listening. Please leave a raving review for me if you've learned something good, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Now, if you're in the mood for some more great content and tools to get your hormones on track, why not check out our free Facebook group and the blog on our site? We do amazing weekly trainings in our group that me and my wife call Tea and Teachings that give good tips for anything hormones and metabolism related. It's also a great community where you get to share your goals and success with like-minded people just like you. I'll make sure to drop both the Facebook group link and the blog link in the show notes for you. Or if you're ambitious like me, the name of the group is Weight Loss and Balanced Hormones. It'll say Fit for All beside it with a picture of me. So come and join us and have more fun.